Transient Global Amnesia is a very rare event where a person loses memory for a time. Happened to a family member of mine. She woke at 3 a.m, was hot, confused, nothing looked the same. She couldn't understand and make connections with things. She felt very disorientated and things were fuzzy, blurry. She recognised her room in her house. She was in a bed and sleeping, and but really didn't know what city she lived in. She related this to me afterwards, that she had looked down at her hand, which had recently had carpal tunnel surgery, and couldn't understand why it had a bandage on it, what had actually happened to her, which then led on to wondering about whether she had a job. Did she actually have to be somewhere that day? She couldn't remember that she was actually on sick leave for 10 weeks to have both wrists done. So it seemed the details, the small to the big picture, were missing. She could remember some things, but not all. She couldn't sort things into their usual patterns, couldn't make sense of what things were and how to get that information back. It just seemed to be missing. She reported that she recognised her diary, but she thought it was the 26th of October, when in fact it was the 1st of November. And this was all very confusing. She looked at her mobile phone, which she recognised, but didn't know the photos and didn't understand what the black and white things were. She'd lost her memory of reading, couldn't make sense of the words. She didn't know that she was a teacher. It took some time, some 5 hours, until that memory came back to her. There doesn't seem to be any trauma or any reason why this event occurred, and luckily she has returned to normal memory. The big picture, getting down to the smaller details, has come back, but there was a time when what worried her the most was that if this was a really severe migraine that was causing this, whether her memory was wiped out for good, or if it would return and come back to the memories she'd always held and had. She reported feeling really lost, didn't know exactly what to do. She didn't ring any of us as family members. She couldn't really remember who to call. All she felt like doing was sleeping. In the morning she did talk to her housemate and ask for some support. And eventually, after 5 hours, memories of who we were came back to her, and the things that she liked doing, the things that she had on her diary for that day, like having a bed on the Melbourne Cup and doing some gardening. So we all got together and started rounding up some thoughts after her visiting the doctor and sorting out the blood tests and the MRIs. She was diagnosed with transient global amnesia. And then the search started. What the neurologist suggested that there really isn't a lot known about this condition at the moment. So we went home and looked on Google and YouTube for any assistance, and asked on Twitter to see if there were other people who had recently had this event occur in their life. And there were a lot of recent articles which were really interesting and informative, and Webicina was one of those sites that came up for Facebook, and as a contact to give information. We also heard about a book that was being reviewed before I go to sleep on the ABC radio about a woman with amnesia. So there was lots of funny coincidences occurring at the same time. Even one of the friends saying that Doc Martin had recently had one of the characters on the show with the same condition. So I really recommend Twitter, Facebook, and other social media connections. If I had a smartphone, I'd look at getting an app that could help me and my family to gather the information we want just to see and keep up to date, along with advice from our doctors.